I'm not one of those funny doctors that it has to be doctor.
Why aren't you wearing a stethoscope to really sell it?
It's written here.
Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. My name is Alexis Blake.
And I'm Liam Blake.
And we have a very exciting episode today. I think it's exciting anyway. Do you want to tell them what we're doing?
We've got Dylan Fernando from the treatment rooms in London. He's on the channel today. We're going to be interviewing him and it's going to be regarding hair transplants for trans people.
Very exciting. So if you don't know, I have already had a hair transplant surgery a few years ago. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about everything that goes into a hair transplant, the results, what you can expect, what you need to prepare for. So we're going to ask him lots of questions. We're going to probe and ask all the juicy questions that you might want to know the answers to. And even if you don't want a hair transplant, maybe you'll find this interesting. So let's dive in.
Right, should we bring him on then?
Let's go. So welcome, Dr. Dylan Fernando. Thank you so much for being here. That is a mouthful for saying. So I'm very excited because this is the first time we've had a guest on our podcast.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here. But before we dive into the world of hair transplant and what it is you do and where you come from, can you just give us a bit of a background about yourself, please?
Yeah, hi Alexis, hi Liam.
Hi,
really excited to be on your podcast, so thank you for inviting me. So yes, just to introduce myself to all of your viewers, I am Dr. Dylan Fernando. I am a hair transplant surgeon and one of the co-founders of the treatment rooms in London. We are a hair transplant clinic and have become a really good and leading hair transplant clinic throughout the whole of the UK. But most importantly, first, thank you for your kind invite, and the rationale for that invite is part of my work, or a large part of my work, is specialising in feminization hair transplant surgery. So that's the type of transplant that someone who is transitioning from male to female would look to have in order to feminize their hairline, and that's something that I take a particular amount of pride and enjoy doing. So hopefully if I can share a little bit of that expertise, that will be a success.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You can tell, though, that you've got a passion for it because
absolutely,
he's got a grin from ear to ear while he's saying all that.
The first thing I was like, how many trans women have you done hair transplants on? Can you even count at this point?
Definitely, I've lost count. I mean, where you would look at somebody's proportion of their work, they'll normally have 95% of their work being male patterned hair loss and correcting that. Maybe then 4% being female hairlines and then 1% being trans work. Whereas actually for me, it's completely different. Whereas I do probably about 70% male work and then actually probably about 20 to 25% transgender feminization surgery. So it is actually a huge part of my practice in comparison to what any other surgeon would do. We're probably doing a transgender feminization case once a week.
Amazing.
Wow.
Dylan's single-handedly making the world a better place.
Making all the trans women beautiful.
Try my best.
Thank you for that. Thank
I
you
love
for your
that.
work.
So, shall we dive into the questions? Is that all right?
Yeah, let's absolutely fire away.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
So before we actually go into the questions, one more thing I wanted to say. When I was doing my research for my hair transplant journey, because I had one, if you guys don't know, I had one 3 years ago now, which we'll talk about a bit more in a bit. But I struggled to find a lot of information, could find plenty of information for male hair transplants for a male hairline, but to get a female hairline for male to female transgender, it was quite hard to find the information. So hopefully if this...
You had to kind of ask other people, other trans women.
Reach out in different platforms and groups and things like that. So it'll be interesting to get this out there and hopefully it'll help some people. So that'll be fab. So let's dive into the questions.
Fingers crossed.
Over to you, Liam.
Right, Dylan. So as far as I'm aware...
Dr. Dylan.
Oh, sorry. All right, Doctor.
No, it's okay. Dylan's good. I'm really
sure?
relaxed about it.
All right.
I'm not one of those funny doctors that it has to be doctor.
Why aren't you wearing a stethoscope to really sell it?
It's written here. It's written on there. So if anyone's in doubt, it's there. But Dylan's absolutely fine.
Brilliant. Right, Dylan, what I was going to ask is, as far as I'm aware, there's different types of hairlines. My hairline, for example, is far different to Alexis's hairline, or maybe a woman's hairline. And how do they differ? And why would you choose one over the other, sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's such a good question. Like I said, when you're dealing with hair loss, particularly a male individual dealing with hair loss, they have something called male patterned hair loss. And that pattern refers to that kind of M-shaped hairline that you see. And just to add insult to injury, when that hair loss gets worse, that M shape gets further and further back. Now, that is exclusive, pretty exclusive to a male hairline. So as a female, or if you're looking to feminize your hairline, having that M shape is a massive giveaway about that being a masculine hairline. So particularly for my transgender patients, that's a massive problem. I think Alexis, you were really kind to share your journey of your hair transplant. I've watched your video, and you talked a lot about your dysphoria to that was associated with your hairline, and what you talk about in that video is what all of my patients go through, and it's usually one of the first things they go through when they're going through that transitioning journey. They think about, okay, well, I want to feminize, but I also want to pass feminine. And passing feminine means not having signs that might relate back to being or having a male hairline or male hair loss prior to the transition. So those are the type of things and differences that you need to kind of understand. The M shape associated with a male hairline, and then you've got a female hairline, which is often more kind of oval shape. So it kind of starts in the center and then just rounds off in the corners. Not necessarily like a nice rainbow. There is subtle nuances to that, but that general differentiation exists. So quite often you do see people who basically go through that transition journey, want to try and just get rid of that M shape and go for a softer, rounder finish. And those two differences are important to understand between the female or masculine hairline.
Thank you.
I think that was the first thing you did, wasn't it? The first thing you wanted to do was,
absolutely.
I want a hair transplant.
For me, the biggest source of gender dysphoria has always been my hairline. Even before I started receding, having the masculine, I called it the vampire V. I've always had that.
I'm coming to think, what's my hairline like? Should we have a look at mine?
V.
Let's have a look at that, Liam. I want to see.
Oh, it's a little bit of a V there. But
so that's quite cool. And so you've got a really awesome V from the tattoo, and then it kind of accentuates your V from the hairline. But
that's what the tattoo was for. It was to kind of mask the hairline, so it creates like more of a shape on my face. That's one of the reasons why I got that tattoo done.
Well, that is a master artistry. That is fantastic.
So if I ever do go fully bald, I'm covered already.
We've already got
You're already sorted. Yeah, absolutely. But sorry, Alexis.
You're right. I was just gonna say, I think for. Oh my gosh, this mic! I hit it every time.
It's not the mic, it's you.
So, for me personally, I always had the vampire V, and it always gave me a source of dysphoria. And then when I got that corrected like 3 years ago, and I had my hair transplant, I didn't just revert it back to what it was before I started balding. Obviously, what I have now, this here now, that's not what I was born with. Obviously, I was still born with more of a masculine hairline, so I was having this procedure both to correct what balding had done and to also then add the feminine structure, and it completely changed my face.
Yeah,
it absolutely has been one of the biggest changes out of all the surgeries I've had on my face and everywhere.
It's the one that made the biggest difference
to how people view me, and I think that's what's so important, is how gender dysphoria is often triggered by how other people see you and the pronouns they use and what they clock you as. So I think it is a huge part of transition for so many trans women.
No, you're spot on. And what you've described there is the difference of what if someone coming to me for hair restoration would be maybe a more arched, still slightly M-shaped hairline. Whereas looking to feminize, you do want to go that extra little bit further to really start to round off the corners and to create more of an oval shape. However, and I think we talked about this a little bit in a bit of our warm-up, I mean, some clinics, they do really try and overdo it. Because you were saying that they wanted to like chop your head off and bring it down here. What was that like? Tell us.
I was so naive.
They drew it on and you redrew it.
Yeah, so if you don't know, guys, when you have a hair transplant, it's literally like you see in the films. They literally get a Sharpie, well, it looks like a Sharpie, and they draw on your hairline to show you where it's going to be. And initially they drew it and they had these corners here, so it was like a full rainbow, which is fine for some people. It's just not my style. I really wanted the more natural sort of look. So I remember drawing them seeing the rainbow, and I was like, let's just move those corners back a little bit. And it was really low. I would have had no forehead. It would have been like eyebrows, hairline. So I got it changed, luckily.
She took the pen off them and were like,
I didn't quite take the pen.
Can we just push this up a little bit?
This is better, thank you.
I did say we need to just redo this, please. But I'm glad I did, because obviously once it's done, and then you're going to have hair growing in those places. So I'm glad I did.
I do see it. It's quite scary. I see loads of patients that come in where they've had a transplant done and it's done too low. And it just shortens their forehead so much. It looks actually really unnatural. It's a massive giveaway that you've had a transplant. And actually, they actually want to have it reversed, or they want to have it moved up. And it's something that, that's why whenever I see patients straight up, I always try and tell them, I think I mentioned to you a little bit about the rule of thirds.
Yes.
And that's a really nice little take home for anyone watching. Just, whenever you think about beautification and facial proportions, you want to look at your hairline to the middle of your eyebrows to the tip of your nose, and then from your tip of your nose to your chin. And the closer that those are in equal proportions, the more balanced your face is going to be. So whenever you see, a surgeon trying to lower your hairline like this, and then you'll only have this as your forehead, you know that actually is not going to be balanced. So a little tip and a trick to anyone watching, the type of thing you want to look for if you're looking for that position of the hairline. And the other thing, and Alexis, you kind of brought this up, is that kind of V shape that you had originally, which some people really like, and it's really true to their character. And don't be fooled, because there are, female hairlines out there where there is a little bit of a V, so it's okay to maintain a little bit of that V. I promise I'll do some research and find out a few people that do, but like Nicole Kidman has one, Kourtney Kardashian has one. Like, it's okay to have a little bit of a V, and actually then having the hairline then kind of do the arching around that. These subtle nuances actually make it look a little bit more natural rather than just that kind of rainbow hairline.
Because I think with beautification, it's always enhancing what you've got, not completely changing it. Yeah. Totally,
no,
is it?
No, I do agree.
I think that's always important, to keep what you've got, but just enhance it, make it look better than it already is.
They did ask if I want, like when we were talking about moving it back up, they did say, do you want to keep a bit? And I said no, because my V comes quite low.
Okay.
For me personally, with my dysphoria, I always associated the V on me as male. Such a male thing. And that's why for me, I just wanted the smoother start here. But then it's different for everyone, so you've just got to really think about
for
it.
Different folks.
Exactly. But don't rush and just get one certain style. Just make sure you think about it, because when your hair grows in, it's like that for either the rest of your life or until you get something else to fix it later on.
That's what I was just going to ask you. You kind of half answered it already, but I was going to say, so they are reversible then. If you get a hair transplant that's incorrect, can you have it?
If it's too low, is that what you mean?
If it's too low, can you have that part of that reversed?
The short answer to it is yes, it can be reversed, but that is with a lot of painful repair surgery. So the best thing you can do is find yourself a surgeon. It doesn't have to be me. Find yourself a surgeon that will sit down and talk through with you like your aims, your expectations of your hairline, map it out for you. Not draw it in a Sharpie, but maybe in an eyeliner pen, which can be moved quite easily. And then you can just really design it in a way that frames your face aesthetically. You're thinking about the future as well, in terms of I'm sure we'll talk about how your face is going to change with time. These are all important things. And then once you've got that design and you're happy with it, then proceeding, because what you don't want to have to do is think about having to reverse and undo surgery. Yes, you can take out some of those follicles either by surgery, but that leaves scars. The other way to do it is with laser, but obviously you're kind of reversing all the hard work.
It's a lot of extra work and money, isn't it, which you want to try and avoid. Definitely.
Get it right the first time.
Shall we move on to question 2?
Yeah.
If you feel like I'm like toeing a line or saying
honestly,
more...
I'm open book, honestly.
How very dare you!
I love it. So, there we go, Dylan's laughing, I love it. So, moving on to the next question, FUE versus FUT. So I had, if anyone doesn't know, I had FUE, I just had to have that clarified by Dr. Dylan because I forgot the name, where they take out individual hairs randomly all over the back and they put them at the front. But what is the difference and what are the pros and cons? They're my questions to you for trans women specifically getting this surgery.
Yeah, so FUE versus FUT. So FUE means follicular unit excision. And in that, basically, each and every hair is taken out one by one. It's almost a bit like my keyboard here. If you look at my keyboard and you take one key here, imagine all of this is hair. You take one here and you leave a little bit of a space around it. You take another one here, leave a little bit of space around it. And you keep doing this. So ultimately, by the end of it, you've got lots of hairs that are going to be missing, but all the hair that's left behind can grow out and cover the entire zone. So that's FUE. Then you've got FUT, follicular unit transplant, and it's usually tagged along with strip, which basically means a strip of hair is taken out. So rather than taking the dotted hairs around here, you kind of take a whole strip of hair across the middle, and then with the gap that you have in the middle, you kind of sew up the ends, which leaves a nice, clean, linear scar along the back of the head. Now, if you look at a lot of kind of hair transplants guides, people will say, oh, FUE is the way forward, it's the modern thing, it's what most people should be getting. But actually, FUT strip has a massive, massive role in hair restoration. It did then and it still does now. It's really, really good option, particularly for patients or people looking to have surgery, but they don't want to shave their head. And that's one of the massive, massive benefits.
So with an FUT, you're saying you don't have to shave your hair off. I didn't even realise that. That's brilliant.
No, it's exactly. So it's actually a bit of a game changer for especially for trans patients who have a lot of dysphoria, associated with their hair. They've usually spent years trying to grow their hair out. The last thing you want to do is try and tell them, hey, you need to shave your head again. I think, Alexis, when you kind of went through it, you had it was a bit of a shock moment when they kind of told you.
Luckily, I'd only started growing my hair maybe 6 months before, so I only had maybe 3-4 inches of hair, so it wasn't anything crazy, but still, they said we're just going to shave a section at the back. They didn't prepare me enough, I don't think. And they shaved like up to here. I just had a patch left on top.
You had a tuft, just a little tuft.
And seeing it bald and raw after the surgery. So if I had the hair transplant now, I would absolutely get FUT because I wouldn't want to shave any of this off. I had the little letterbox section in the back and then that's stitched up fine. But yeah, back then I was again naive and I didn't do my research. This is what this is for other people.
Yeah,
no, exactly. And I think if you look back at your pictures, and maybe you can include a little outtake of it, because that was a really good. I mean, they did what we call the undercut shave. That is one of the FUE ways of shaving the hair. There is another way of doing it, which is called what we do call the tiered shave. So that's a little bit more forgiving. And what we do is we do the little letterbox shaves, but we kind of tier them. So we do one little letterbox, we leave a layer of hair and another letterbox, and then maybe a little small letterbox on either of the sides. Now, that is a good way of taking hairs out, doing an FUE procedure, but still having some length to be able to cover up those zones. So we can do that, and we can do that with FUE, but we just can't take as many grafts as maybe what you need for an FUT procedure. So, or what you might need for a larger area of hair loss. So it also kind of depends what you want or what stage of your transition you're at. Because all of these factors. So for example, if you've got loads of hair loss, so you need a lot of grafts and you still don't want to shave your head, you might want to do a large FUT procedure initially to restore as much of that hair loss as possible. But say you're kind of still early on in your transition and you might want to have FFS down the line, or you might be taking hormones, so your facial shape is going to change on your hormones over the next couple of years. Well, you might want to not go for that finesse feminization. So you might do an FUT at the very beginning to get lots of grafts, and then later on in your transition maybe do a small FUE with those little windows to get the grafts that you need just for that finesse touch and that feminization. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, thank you.
Brilliant,
I think that's so interesting because for me, I'm starting to look at my FFS, and if anyone doesn't know, that just stands for female
feminization.
Oh my
surgery.
God, female feminization surgery, which is not necessarily to beautify; it's just to ease my dysphoria more about certain aspects. We'll not go too much into it, but it will mean I'll be having face surgery, and the scar they generally do is along the hairline, which I've got my nice and shiny transplant to then have it cut open, and I could lose grafts. And then a lot of trans women, that's why they wait to get the hair transplant after to then cover the scar. So what can I do?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, obviously we're having this conversation now, and a lot of the time I do have this conversation with trans patients at different points in their transition. In your case, it's what you don't want to do is an FFS surgery where they do a cut across your hairline and essentially undo all your hard work. You can have surgery, so I know people like the facial team, which we've talked about as well, they kind of do the scar a little bit further back. So they kind of do the incision for their FFS further back, and they kind of then do all of the work and put it back together. So it doesn't affect the hairline. It doesn't cause any problems or disrupt any of your work. The other way is obviously in planning. So if you try and avoid doing the final feminization of your hairline in the first place with hair transplantation, leave that aside. Just do kind of more. I kind of do like a hair restoration, but also kind of like a gender neutral kind of hairline that's not overly feminized, maybe just slightly rounded but not too much, and then leave that last bit of feminization once that scar is there from FFS.
It's crazy how much you just don't realize, do you? Before I transitioned, I didn't know what went into it, to medically transition with all the surgeries. And then when you get going, you're like, blooming heck, it's a lot.
We're like trying to hit a pinata in the dark.
Honestly, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just guessing.
You were just slamming your fingers on the keyboard and hoping for the best.
I know. So hopefully this video does help any trans women or any women out there, because women do get hair transplants.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might want to, if you want to talk about why a woman would want a hair transplant.
Yeah, there's many reasons why a woman might need to have a hair transplant. So we talked a little bit about kind of hair loss. Women do get hair loss as well, and they can get hair loss from the frontal hairline or in the corners. So they might have a hair transplant to correct that. They may also have things like extensions put in or have tight hair designs and tight hairstyles, which actually can cause traction alopecia. So that's actually something pulling on the hair constantly under high tension, and over time that can actually cause you to have a receding hairline. So in those type of situations, we do see that we do female hair transplants to restore hairline position, and some people just have really high hairlines from birth, and they really would like to, from a more cosmetic point of view, have their hairline lowered.
Amazing. Thank you, Franton. I think a lot of women don't talk about that, and I know some women do get the surgeries, but it's very hush hush and no one wants to talk about it, but it's so important.
Yeah, hair is massively important. I mean, it's such a big part of our identity, whether you're transitioning or just literally if you want to express yourself in a certain way. It's super, super important. And I think, having the freedom to do that is what we try and deliver with anyone looking to have a hair transplant.
It's life-changing. I can speak from experience. Having the right hairline and having longer hair is life-changing. Well, as silly as that sounds.
When it was growing through every step of the way, you was just
obsessed with it. I was
running
obsessed.
Upstairs and you went, babe, look. And I'm like, what? And you're like, it's grown even more. I'm like, it looks the same as it did yesterday, Alexis.
Thank you, Liam. So,
it's a bit like trying to watch paint dry, isn't it? You're kind of like, where is the change? But
when you see
that's
a lovely, gentle
she'd
segue
lay down,
into our
she'd be
next...
like, I can feel it growing, Liam.
Shut up. Moving on to the next topic, both of you ganging up on me. That's a perfect segue. So,
what would you expect from a hair transplant as part of your transition journey? For example, the process, logistics, and is there anything else you can explain to the audience from a medical point of view?
For sure. So when you're going through, first of all, the journey of thinking about a hair transplant, there's a lot of, as we've seen in our chat today, there's a lot of things to first of all think about in terms of the prep, the planning, and making the right decision first. So first of all, find yourself a surgeon that you're happy with and comfortable with. The landscape's changed massively, even maybe since Alexis, you had your surgery done.
Probably.
The landscape's changed massively. There's so many clinics out there. There's some clinics where it's not even a surgeon doing your surgery. It might be some kind of rogue technician who has no medical experience whatsoever. So you do have to be a little bit careful about what you're looking for in terms of the surgeon. So spend some time, look for the right clinic that you're comfortable with, look for the surgeon that you're happy with, and then have a chat with that surgeon and really work through your questions, your concerns, and make sure you have a plan and a strategy that you're comfortable with for your hair, but also your hair transplant. So that is a huge starting point. And then you can start thinking about, obviously, the type of surgery, having FUE versus FUT and those elements. The surgical day itself is a bit of a long day, but it's made comfortable for you. So we at the treatment rooms, we spend a lot of time. We have a large team, everyone there to make sure you're safe, to make sure you're comfortable, but also to make sure we're doing a fantastic job with your hair. So you do get looked after and pampered. A lot of our patients say it's like a day at the spa, but I have to manage their expectations first to make sure that they're comfortable with the idea that there is things like injections involved. We need to do little small local anesthetic injections to numb the scalp, and they're not pain free.
No, they're not. I remember they're not.
Liam, have you had any tattoos by any chance, or?
I've had a couple. Just a few here and there. Yeah, nothing too extreme,
No, nothing too. Well, a lot of my patients will say that it's actually better than having a tattoo in terms of the initial injections. It's like having a small tattoo for a couple of minutes, and once that's the local anesthetic going in, and when that goes in, everything gets nice and numb. So unlike a tattoo, the pain stops, and essentially you're super numb. It feels like you're wearing a helmet and someone's knocking on your head, and that kind of leaves us for the rest of the day to kind of crack on and do the work that we need to do. And like I said, it can be a long day. A surgery can take anywhere up to 8 to 10 hours to do. So it's something to be mindful of, that it's a bit of a slug. But at the end of the day, your transplant's in place, the donor site's packaged up, and sometimes it has a bit of a bandage on it, sometimes it's just got a little bit of Vaseline, and you're good to go home that very same day. The first couple of days after surgery is the period where the hairs are super delicate. Alexis, you might remember, like, you could even knock them out if you were not too careful. Do you remember that period?
On that note, she's got a very specific little story to tell you, hasn't her? So I'll give you a clue. It involves...
Liam always wears those hats. And it was my day 2 or 3. And I was being so careful. And he came in to kiss me and his hat hit me there. And I'm not even kidding. I think it's your fault. I have a tiny little bald spot where his hat hit me. I screamed.
I've never felt so immediately guilty, and I just wish I could take it back.
And I'm still. Do you know what though?
I'm alive still, so there's that.
I'm glad you are alive, because I can imagine that have been really traumatized after you've gone through 2 to 3 days of like TLC.
No, honestly, I was terrified, and I was looking, and to be fair, the bald spot might have just been like an anomaly with the transplant. I don't know.
Don't blame me on your bald spot.
I know I'm so lucky that I have a full hairline, and the transplant worked well on me, and I'm really happy.
You were really careful. She'd be like, Liam, shut the window. The hair's going to blow out.
It wasn't that bad.
It was so
No,
bad.
It wasn't.
It was.
But I remember it.
You'll do well for the wind to blow out your hairs, but they're super delicate in that time. And I'm glad to hear like it happened. Sometimes you hear stories like that, and people have like dislodged like half the hairline, and it's super. I was sad.
So scared of it because I knew to be so careful. One thing I would love to ask you about, because there's a couple of things that I experienced in the coming sort of 6 months to a year, for recovery. What people can expect, because obviously there's shock loss. And if you want to talk about that a little bit.
No, 100%. So once you get through those first 3 days, then you kind of get to the period of just kind of general recovery. You've got a few scabs there that last for a couple of weeks, and then those scabs will just wash away. The donor site heals super fast, particularly with FUE. FUT can be a little bit sore for a couple of weeks, but it actually heals also equally as fast, or as similarly fast. But then, like you said, there's this kind of weird, like, okay, so the transplant's taken now.
It's growing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like this super weird, kind of really frustrating shedding period. And that shedding period is basically the hairs where you've done the surgery at the back and you've taken away its blood supply and maybe given it a bit of a knock around with some trauma throughout that surgical process. Not you, but the surgeon. Where we've done that, the roots kind of turn around and say, look, I'm happy in my new home, but I just need to kick back and relax for a couple of months. And so in doing so, it switches the root off. It goes into the dormant part of its hair cycle. The hair shaft then gets ejected. So you have this mass shedding of your hair, Char, and that can be quite scary, Alexis. What was that like for you?
I just remember like the hair's like sprouting through and I'm like, oh, I can start to see the shape and it's pretty and it's going to be feminine, and then I was bald again and I was like, brilliant. Brilliant.
And we call it like we actually call it the ugly duckling stage, because you kind of you do go back a stage and you've got this shorter hair as well in areas. It's a little bit frustrating, and I can't I don't know what to say for it. We try and cover it up as best as we can, but shedding can happen. It's likely to happen basically where the roots, like I say, just go to sleep. And it does so after about 1 month post-surgery, and it does so for about 2 months. So you literally have this kind of limbo period between 1 to 3 months. And then slowly but surely they start to wake up again, and you see that sprouting.
So what I was going to say is it's just about managing expectations, and because if you know from the offset that, look, it's gonna grow pretty quickly, you're gonna get that excitement of seeing it, but it is most likely gonna shed for a few months. It's just managing that expectation.
And if you'd have been told that, whole though, like,
well, yeah,
you can probably talk better than I can on this, but I kind of was thinking in 6 months I will have a perfect hairline and my hair will be long and luscious and it'll be amazing, and it's not like that, is it?
It's a, what is it? A marathon, not a sprint.
Not a race.
No, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
I think Liam's got you on that one. Yeah, it's definitely a marathon, not a sprint. Like, yeah, so your hair's having gone through that shedding, the roots just kind of waking up. It's also waking up, trying to find itself a new channel through the skin. So the hair has to kind of fight its way through, and as it's doing so, it kind of kinks and coils. And so I think you had this, didn't you, Alexis, in your growth?
Yes, I did, and I didn't really do enough research, and I wasn't really warned that it could happen. So my hair transplant grew out. Like, I could only describe it as like really tight, dry, kinky, curly hair. And my hair is quite wavy-ish naturally. This was straightened. But it got to a point where I was having like this afro hair at the front, almost afro hair, and then at the back it was straight. So I actually relaxed mine with the, I don't even know what it is, it's just called like a chemical relaxer, just to smooth it out, to help me manage it and whatnot. But it's one of those things, like realising as well that when the hair's growing through, it's a bit thicker and coarser, and it takes time to blend in, but it does now, and it has now.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it and I don't even think about it anymore.
It's taken a good, I'd say, 1.5 years to get to a normal, I don't want to say normal, but for me, for my transplant,
Alexis,
a normal looking hairline-ish, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you've just hit the nails like on the head. So that 1.5 years, 18 months is the number that I usually tell all of my patients as well, as to, yes, you're going to see early growth, and a lot of clinics will try and say, yeah, you'll have a result within 6 to 8 months, and you will have growth. You'll start to see your new allotment of hair, but those hairs, as you've experienced, are going to be weird, wonderful, wild, frizzy. It might not behave as you want it to do so. And it also kind of depends a bit on what your hair type is like. So some people with curlier hair are going to be certainly more prone to it. People with maybe softer, finer hair may not get this as much, but like I said, there is always certainly an unnatural characteristic to the hair when it first grows out in those first 12 months. And then what I say to patients is that between 12 to 18 months, that's when you start to see the softening. So you start to see it more kind of in its genuine nature.
Yeah, definitely. And the one thing as well that I think a lot of people don't realise is, being a trans woman, if you're growing your hair at the same time, you go through the mullet phase, which I very much did. So I had this short hair at the front, and then it was growing down my neck, and I just got to a point where I'm like, I'm going to have to cut the back off.
You were just wearing hats all the time,
yeah, I chopped all of it off into a bob to get it to one length, and then now I'm just sort of letting it continue from there. That's where we are today.
Well, it's looking great now.
Thank you. Do you know what? I'm really happy with it. I mean, there's, like I said, there's a bald spot. I don't know if you can see it on camera.
I'm looking closely here.
Please find it. It's somewhere over here.
Liam, don't knock it with your hat again.
I know, I'm scared now. I mean,
it's a slight little, like, tiny hole where it's not as dense. But other than that,
I mean, you wouldn't know.
I mean, no, when people look up close, like, I can't believe you've had a hair transplant, I wouldn't know. And that's, for me, that was the goal, though. I wanted it to look completely natural. I mean, the hair texture is still slightly different.
I think with imperfections,
That will still
that
get
makes
better.
it look a bit more natural
But
because it's not
overall, what would you score my hairline out of a 10 of my transplant? I won't be offended.
No, I think you've had a great transplant. I'm obviously looking it through the camera, but I'll give you I'll happily give you a very nice kind of 7 or 8 out of 10. I think that's
I'm happy with that.
that's a stronger hairline. I'll the only other 2 points I'll take from Liam, because he's the one that knocked out the hairs, right? So.
Thank you.
Okay, good save
I think
there.
as well, like, it is still I think it's a fraction low. I think.
Yeah.
But personally, like, with the rule of thirds, I've always thought it's a little bit too low now.
No, we talked about it kind of when we spoke before. There was some small little touches which you mentioned to me, and I think that I agree with you. I think that could have been slightly improved, but I'm just happy that you actually went back to your side and didn't go for the originally low hairline.
Yeah,
The original rainbow, like, yeah, definitely. But like you said with FFS, and I am actually speaking to facial team, we're going there in a month's time.
Yeah.
So they could even do the scar, maybe pull it back slightly, just to sort of correct that slightly low. Hopefully they can do that. We'll see. But I mean,
Yeah, well, you'll get a little facelift from that, won't you?
I can't wait.
I mean, we are going in 4 weeks, not for the surgery though. It's for a
No, it's
consultation.
for a consultation.
Yeah,
but compared to what I had, like 1,000 times better for me and my gender dysphoria and how I feel, it's improved massively. So I shouldn't complain about the little small things, I think. But I am very happy with it.
From that side, my score is 10 out of 10. And I think that's the one thing that I see for all of my trans patients is the sheer difference that it makes to their confidence in terms of, like you said, clocking, passing, and just especially when they're in the early stages of their transition, to then have that confidence to start the social element of the transition. It's a game changer, and it's actually genuine. Now, we talked about how I have a smile from ear to ear about it, because it's something that I really enjoy doing. It has such a meaningful impact to people's lives. I've got all sorts of stories of people through their different journeys and what an impact it makes, and I love doing it.
Love it.
They say, don't they, if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
It's true. A few questions
Absolutely.
I think people might be interested in. I'm not sure if they're considering hair transplant. A couple of ones. When can they dye the hair, perm it or relax it? And can you put extensions on it? That's a personal question, which we'll get to in a minute. But have you got any answers for those things?
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people ask me, they're a bit scared of their transplanted hair. They think it's really fragile or delicate, or it might fall out. It's not. Once those hairs, take, they're really as good as any other hair on your scalp. So from that side of things, you can do with it and style it almost what you in any way you want to. Obviously, but you have to take in the usual measures of keeping your hair healthy and not damaging or breaking it. So in terms of dyeing, using good quality dyeing products or protocols, and I'm comfortable with my patients doing it after a month from surgery, so that's absolutely fine. Using hair products, you can get into your hair even within 2 to 3 weeks of surgery. All absolutely fine. So as far as it kind of comes to like relaxing and straightening, again, comfortable with a month. Sometimes depending on how your scalp is also healing. Yeah. Sometimes we might push that to maybe 3 months. But anyway,
last thing you want to do is burn your scalp with straighteners after surgery.
Exactly. So you just want to make sure the scalp's in good health, and then you can start doing the other elements. Remind me, what was the last one?
It's more of a personal question.
Extensions.
For me. So, sorry, I'm like, this is like an encyclopedia of knowledge. I recently I've tried to get permanent hair extensions, well, they're semi-permanent, but they either put them in like little metal like loops and they stay in your hair, or tracks and things like that. I've tried doing it twice now, and the second time I had it, I had the individual strips of hair with a little metal loop.
Nano beads.
I loved them. I felt amazing.
Fab, yeah.
I felt amazing. But I had to take them out, and I found that where I hadn't had any donor hair taken, they were so comfortable, couldn't feel them. Where the donor hair was taken and where the transplant hair was put in, it was more sore. Do you think that was from my transplant? Or is it just maybe I've got a sensitive scalp? I wasn't sure if it was either or.
That's an interesting question. If I'm honest with you, I would just be speculating because, I mean, it is such a nuanced question. If you're saying to me that the pain was definitely in the areas where you had the transplant, whether that be in the donor site or recipient site, it might be that even, you know, a year and a half on that your skin and scalp is more sensitive. And it's not unusual that where we do traumatize the scalp and we do kind of little micro nerve damage, that it does take a bit of time for those nerves to rewire to be kind of back to normal. So some people do have altered sensation or hypersensitivity in those zones. So you probably maybe are experiencing a little bit of that, and that may settle with time. But it's not necessarily if you can tolerate them and you're comfortable with the extensions, then you're more than welcome to carry on with extensions. So extensions are absolutely fine. But again, just be careful with the concept of the traction that it's putting on your scalp or elements of your hairline or your parting, for example, because what that may do is then actually cause hair loss in the form of traction alopecia, which we talked about before. Hair extensions can do that, especially when they're heavy or when they're being applied. They
can do that on
anyone.
Anyone can.
Yeah, so it's something to think about. And I was definitely nervous. And I think it's more of like, not like my subconscious, like you've had this hair transplant, you've been through all this growing out journey, the wild, crazy journey, and getting it to where it is now. And then I put the extensions in, I'm like, I love them and I feel amazing, but if I damage my hair, I will never forgive myself. It was that as well, I think, in the back of my mind, as well as the sensitivity.
There's almost a little bit of, with a hair transplant, waiting for it to grow out, waiting for it to grow to length. It's a bit of that kind of short-term pain, long-term gain mentality, just to really allow your hairs to flourish and to grow well. Super, super, super important. I mean, things like wigs and like you mentioned, things like scarves can be really good solutions to just be a kind of a stopgap until you need to or until you kind of have your hair at the length that you want it to be. Wigs are absolutely fine to use even as soon as 2 to 3 weeks after surgery, just not with any kind of adhesive glue or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's what you did, didn't you?
I think I had 2 weeks where I was off work, I was at home recovering, and then I had a wig with a parting that you couldn't really see the hairline, so it didn't need to be glued down. Fine. And I just plopped that on my head, a couple of pins in the back to hold it when the hair grew back through, and then it was fine. And I did that for about a year, just while everything just sort of, I just let it cook and do its own thing.
You
basically.
had like a scarf as well. You used to wear a scarf.
Silk head scarves. I had a phase for about 4 months where
about 12 different flavours.
Just different flavours and different silk head scarves, but they are amazing. So if you get a hair transplant, silk head scarves and wigs are your best friends for a while. Just while it's so worth it. I think that's the thing as well. People are sometimes put off by the surgery because obviously it's 7 hours. It's quite long, and then the recovery, and you have to wait. But I can honestly say from experience,
it's the best thing you've had,
I would do it again and again and again. If someone said your hair's going to all fall out and you have to have another transplant and go through it all again, I would.
We'd be on that plane.
I'd be on that plane yesterday because the thing is, wigs are great and scarves are great, but then they come off. And for me, I just wanted to look in the mirror when all of the stuff came off and have something that resembled, to me, femininity. And that's so I my favourite surgery, I think, or one of.
The thing is as well, like Alexis, when we are chilling at home on an evening where we're not going out, we're not going out again today, for example, she'll take her makeup off, whack her hair up in a bun, on top of her head. You just have your eyelashes on, don't you?
Yeah.
But that's enough then with the hair for her to feel still feminine, still
like it's wild to me, honestly. Like before when I was trying to style and cover it and things, but now to be able to just go to work with my hair like this and feel confident, like it's crazy. So I can't recommend it enough to people if you're looking at getting one.
So, Dylan, as a surgeon, what do you do in yourself to ensure that your patients have a positive experience, basically from the moment they contact you till they leave? What is it that you do to make it special?
Oh, well,
apart from smiling a lot.
And bring match up. No, I mean, look, at our clinic and myself as a surgeon with a specialism in transgender feminization hair transplant surgery, the biggest thing first of all is achieving a collaborative relationship with my patients, like working together with them to develop a relationship which is based on trust, based on good quality information, and then just good quality planning. From there, we step into the surgical zone. We at the treatment rooms in our clinic, we're not one of those clinics, like I said, where we kind of just farm our patients off to other people to do our surgery for you. I am slogging in that surgical room for 8 hours and I'm hands-on. I'm one of those kind of very OCD people, like a bit like Dr. Pimple Popper, like when that's me. I can sit there for 8 hours doing a hair transplant because it's exactly like that. It's so like therapeutic for me and I enjoy it. So I can just eat up those 8 hours.
I'm assuming you're not watching Pimple Popper while doing the hair transplant.
I'm not watching Pimple Popper whilst I'm doing my surgery.
Oh yeah,
I'm just really committed myself to making sure the surgery is to the standard that it needs to be. By having myself on the scalp, it means that when I'm doing the incisions, these are small, subtle things that are important for a hair transplant, but those incisions, you can control the angle of the hair, you can control the direction, the depth. So and then also the design and the artistry of the hair. So making sure the hair is soft and fluffy at the frontal part of the hairline, and then building the density in behind that. Those are all the things that I have control of because I'm on the scalp doing that surgery. So those are the small elements to make sure that the quality of the surgery is really, really good. And then the last bit is just making sure I send my patient away equipped, happy with how they look after things, managing their expectations to know about all of the crazy curly hair that might grow, the slow growth that happens after surgery, and actually getting them to a place where they're confident that, within 6 months to a year to 18 months after surgery, they're going to be happy, not just with the transplant, but with what the transplant has done for them in terms of their transition, in terms of feeling confident, in terms of social aspects of that, but also then planning for other parts of their transition and what kind of care they're going to go for. So that's all part of what we do and what I do as a surgeon to making sure that they really do just get the best care. A lot of other surgeons may not have that knowledge about kind of transitioning or hormones or FFS, and I think it's really important when you're thinking about hair transplant surgery, when you're feminizing your hairline as part of a transition, you understand that it is really part of that journey, and I feel blessed to be part of that when I can.
Thank you. That was so lovely.
It was lovely. I mean, if I was wanting to get a hair transplant, I would feel safe. I'd feel safe in your hands. Absolutely.
I kind of wish I'd waited now and done it with you.
Where were you?
We can always do a touch up, Alexis. We could just do that little spot.
Do you know what? I might actually do that. I'll come down to London next month and we'll just do that.
Let's do it.
Just a little touch up, right? Okay, we'll book it in now. Well, I think
you can come in for your transplant. Liam, we can discuss notes on all of our tech and gear.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds great to me.
Honestly, thank you so much for giving us all the plethora of knowledge that you have, and just I think it's so helpful to people. And hopefully, if there's anyone out there watching who are considering getting a hair transplant or going to the treatment room with this very special man, you can obviously do that. So I'll link you below as well. Yes. So if anyone wants to find you specifically, then they can just look below and see.
For me, it's felt like just chatting to a friend. Over my life, I've visited surgeons, I've visited doctors when I had my nasal surgery, and sometimes when you speak to somebody in that field, they tend to be quite, to the point. They don't show like a what am I trying to say?
Humanness.
I don't want to say that.
Oh, guys, you've got me blushing here. Stop it. Thank you for these lovely compliments.
Honestly.
Yeah, when I've sat with people like surgeons and they've explained I had nasal surgery quite a few years ago. I had to have my sinuses widened, and I was terrified. I'm terrified of surgery in general. I'm terrified like that. Mm-hmm. And the surgeon did he did nothing to ease that.
No, I've had some surgeries where they just you're a number, you're in and out.
And it's nice to obviously talk to somebody who is obviously very knowledgeable, but not only that, friendly with it.
It'd feel very safe in your care, so I think people will feel that as well and get that vibe. But I think the information you've given, I wish I wish 3 years ago Alexis could have seen all the information you just given to be prepared for what was to come. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Especially being obviously knowledgeable in the trans space as well, which is
fabulous. We need more
invaluable
surgeons specialising because there's very far and few between.
Well, thank you. No, I think I said this to you before, Alexis, but and Liam as well. But like, I've learned so much from my patients, my trans patients. I've always found them to be so just come in and have amazing plethora of knowledge themselves, and kind of put me in my place. And that's almost how I've kind of developed this expertise over the years, and just to be able to share that back with the community is the least I could do.
Amazing. Thank you again.
Brilliant.
So thank you.
Thank you, Alexis.
Fabulous.
I've really enjoyed it.
I have
really
as well.
it.
So
Bit of a stress setting up, but
we got there
in the end.
You got there in the end. I just sat here and smiled while you did it all. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you enjoy this kind of content, please do like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. I stole your line.
You did steal my line, but you know what? I'll let you have it.
Thank you.
You can also listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music as well.
Amazing. And we will hopefully see you guys in the next one. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Dylan.
Bye.
Bye.